One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to feed his soul. When he learns to be alone, he will find that he is whole. Gonna break free tonight. Gonna take these chains, gonna make it through the night. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us here again for the fourth segment of this very special series here on Making Life Brighter. And we are chronicling the interview that I have never released myself. If someone stole it from my computer and released it, I didn't do that. So if you've seen it before, it wasn't because of me. But it is the first time I'm showing this to the world and sharing it with the world. It is the 2018 interview that I did with Full Colin Russell - J. Colin Gould, Commander-in-Chief. And he is the founder, the creator of the quantum banking system. He is the creator of, and the copyright holder. He's actually the copyright holder of the Title IV flag and the Parse syntax grammar. He has the copyright of the corporation that has those authorities. And so I invite you to continue to learn. You can see the film that we did in December here on this YouTube channel and also at Last Flag Standing. It is called Piercing Dynasty, and you can see Last Flag Standing is another film. And you can have all the interviews starting on July 11th on Voice America 2019 with Sergeant Horton. Now, today's last segment is the elongated version of my outtake with Sergeant Horton, who was then Full Commander-in-Chief's treaty captain at the time. So he was actually his diplomat, if you will. And he has since been stepped down, and that's no business of mine and not anything that I can tell you about. So what you do see, though, is the closure I was given so I could understand this better and ask more intelligent, pointed questions. And trust me, when you walk into this for the first time and you meet this guy and you try and make sense of things, he was very patient, very, very, very patient. And as a reminder, I fielded questions once I got into this for him and anyone that wanted to be a part of that for well over a year. And I spoke to him almost daily at one point, trying to sort through the incredible number of questions that came my way worldwide. So once I put the videos out, I was answering questions like it was just a 24/7 job. And in that, I got to learn quite a bit because through the questions came the characters. And the characters were asking, oh, can I speak with Russell? Can I speak with Russell? And I'd say to him, so-and-so wants to speak with you. Who is this? And so I would get more closure on what was going on. Well, eventually, the venue was created. And now there's a place to land for people that they can funnel through to not only get their claim of life, but also to get the closure they need and the study groups they need and so on. So that's come a long way since this particular interview. And I'm very pleased to share this with you because I think it's some of the most profound closure that I've heard, and certainly one of the most solid performances of his closure that I've ever seen. So I love that about this. And Sergeant Horton fills in the gaps. he takes this and puts it in its placement of firsthand witness, someone that was there on scene. And I even heard at one point when I was in person with these two gentlemen, Horton produced an audio tape on a little player. And that audio tape was a recorded live visit to the IRS, where someone went up to the window and they tried to pay their bill. And when the people at the window figured out Russell was there, they came back and said, oh, sorry. Oh, Commander, we don't take payments here. That's because it was shut down in 1999, along with the Federal Reserve, and instead was created the Federal Reserve System. And there was a benevolent system put in place for you to benefit from. Only the powers that be have not honored that. It's a big job to change the world, I'm sure. But it's a bigger job to hold the space. And it's a bigger job yet to hold the space when people ignore it, but they cry for help. So take some time to consider the things that are being said. I think you'll learn quite a bit. And I'm grateful that I get to share with you and that you're listening and sharing. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time here on Making Life Brighter. Enjoy this segment. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so there's some stuff I need you to understand. I've had a few beers, okay, so.
You what?
I've been drinking.
Oh, you had a few beers, okay.
Oh, I've been drinking, bro. Yeah. Oh, this is where the good shit comes out. This is where we start spilling our guts.
Okay.
This is what you want right here. This is the good shit. All right, so anyway, yeah, I've enjoyed talking with you, man. It's good to talk to folks that grasp it, and so it's been a real pleasure, letting me talk to you, and you taking the time to sit down and listen, because of your interaction with what you saw up there in Wyoming, man. I mean, obviously God has chosen you for this. So, man, Winifred, God bless you, buddy, and fucking thank you. So with that being said, you gotta understand, there's some shit I was gonna tell you about, and we were talking about this. I just went and saw the first Marines, okay? I went down and talked to guys. I was like, "What's up, bro?" And I told them what we did an interview and this and that. And they're like, "Okay, cool. When's it coming out?" And I told them sometime in June. Like, "Okay, cool, thanks." And we discussed the issue with Mark Krishan and the warrants for arrests are being filed on him. Right, and I'll probably go pick him up first. Russ is probably gonna fly me there. We'll go have to pick him up and have a confrontation with him right there on the spot where the hell he's at. I will be at that point authorized to go and handle Mark Krishan however I see fit. Now, I want you to understand there's some things that you got to understand with this whole thing he's created. If the nation has no flag and the military is using its military base flag, right? That's all it's got. It's a 3x5 military base flag. And they're declared martial law up in Washington, D.C. And Trump's declared martial law and they're cleaning the system out. There is no sovereign behind them authorizing their conduction of commerce on planet Earth. They're just a rogue military with no nation behind them. They don't have a nation to protect or defend. They don't have a flag from a nation.
That's calling it a nation, yeah.
To muster themselves under to defend. So they're a rogue military industrial complex. And they've attached themselves to the Trump administration, which is a private corporation, in an effort, in a martial law military effort to clean the country out. And like I said, we're hoping, our prayer, as we've talked, all the guys were talking and working our way through the chains and stuff, is that Trump is going to say, hey, look, when he's all done finally cleaning this whole thing out, he's going to say, hey, look, here's how it worked. But if he doesn't, our job is to tell everybody how it worked and force him into making sure that he says, hey, here's how it did work under this monarch. The only other monarchs on the planet left is Russell. Because Spain and France were disqualified too.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with blood feuds, right? So people have killed other people to get into those positions. So they were ill-gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's all been proven. That's all a matter of fact in relation to historical accounts. So they don't have a king or queen. They have a usurper. And who usurped that position.
Mm-hmm.
And that means whether or not they understand how a commander-in-chief operates, you don't know. You know, they've stolen and usurped that throne. And they had to learn that system and how it all functions after they stole it. And so secrets that the actual monarch had in relation to how a commander-in-chief operates were lost. Right? Because the king's not going to divulge everything that he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Subject, right? So these things were lost. So anyway, the military right now is operating as a rogue industrial complex. It doesn't have a nation. It doesn't have a flag to muster itself under and a people to protect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's trying. You know what I'm saying? It knows where it came from, and it knows what it wants to protect, and knows what it needs to protect, but it doesn't have a flag to stand under to authorize it to do so, other than the military flag and the power that they have in the palm of their hand to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you about that. I was like, man, there's some shit. We were talking. I'm like, God, there's so much I forgot to tell her. Holy crap. So yeah, gosh, I just need it. You and I need to kick back and just drink some beers together and hang out. I could tell you some shit, because once I get with the guys and we start talking, there's so much shit I forgot to tell you about them. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to tell her so much more, so much more. And the folks that are going to sit around your table and listen to this,
Yeah.
which I'm hoping you'll share with them, which is okay. What I'm telling you right now, you're free to go ahead and share with these guys. When Russ disqualified everything and took it all down, nobody has the authorization to do anything. So in 1999, when the Federal Reserve was kicked out and the IRS was kicked out of the country, the authorization for the unification of the 50 states dissolved. Right? So there is no more United States. And the states themselves were borrowing money from the IMF and the World Bank to create their roads and all the shit they were making.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have no money. They're fucking broke. Right? So in 1999, it all dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
So did Congress. So did the Senate. It all ended. And that's what I said in War Castles. Everything needs to be resubstantiated. We need to bring forward a new Congress. We need to bring forward a new Senate. The states have to redeclare their boundaries. They have to set up their new oh gosh, what's that called? The overlays, the boundaries, basically the outline of states, right? They have to redeclare those and refile everything with the new sovereign, who's Commander-in-Chief Russell J. Gould, to say these are our territorial areas, right? And together we have come together to form a more perfect union and go back to the original, shall we say, constitution between the states, the U.S. Constitution, which Russell has already rebuilt in quantum. It's already sitting there, ready to be authorized. All the states have to do is say, yeah, these are our boundaries, and yeah, you're correct. The boundaries that you have there are correct. We'll sign on to that, and yeah, we need to resubstantiate everything in a quantum manner. And from there, the governors work in sending the contracts out down the hill, in quantum contracts in relation to how the states will interact with the local populace, right? And in relation to counties
Has he ever approached them about doing that? Has he ever said to them, you know?
No, he has not. His understanding, you know, it's like if you just took it all over and you realize what was going on and realize the states were dissolved, the upper echelons, such as the governors and, you know, the senators and the congressmen, they all understand what Russ did. They all understand that it ended. They all understand the international banking law. They understand it. They understood the whole thing fucking ended. And when he stepped in, he did what he did. So they know, and there's a great deal of them that do know. There's some that do not as well. They're stupid people, dumbed down to shit. They were brought up in the institutions they were brought up in to know only what they know. You know, it's like I always say, you have self-induced your own autism. And I say it all the time, like guys like, you know, you get these guys like, I'm a doctor of podiatry, right? Well, so what? You can spit out what you've learned didactically out of a book. So what? You self-induced your own autism, like the fucking Rain Man, you know? Oh yeah, 599 fucking people died on American Pan Am flights in 1999. You know, you're spitting out whatever the fuck you learned in a book. You've never gone and researched anything for yourself, right? So you basically self-induced your own autism. I like to say that. So these guys, there's a bunch of them that don't know, you know, how the bigger picture works, and they're just, you know, they were school teachers, or they were, you know, a welder or a mechanic or a fucking cop or a sheriff, wherever the hell they were, and they eventually worked their way up through a congressional seat into the seat of governor. You know, and they've been manipulated by the forces around him. Oh, I'm a Mason now. So you've gone to the Masonic lodges, you've been indoctrinated in a Luciferian fucking doctrine, so you're going to want the one world order, new world order, Luciferian, one guy dictatorship of the fucking world is what you're on board with. Oh yeah, it's a great system. But they're doing it because of the money. You know, the bad guy's like, hey, come on and do this. You can make all kinds of money. Fuck the people. Fuck what they're about, man. This is all about you and your family. You can make a retirement. You can fucking set things up, and then fuck them. And those guys are like, yeah, fuck them. They're sheeple. They're led. They're fucking easily led. You know, and money is a big leader in that. It's a big draw. So, you know, they're like, okay, cool, fuck it. Yeah, fuck it. Everybody's fucked up. Fuck them all. And they jump on the bandwagon and start selling their country, you know, down the line, and fucking to create a one world global government. They're not even aware they're creating. They're not even aware what they're doing to their kids and their grandkids and the children to come for generations after them, that they've sold them into slavery. They just don't get it. And they're jumping on board for that instant retirement, and they're only thinking about themselves, right? So I just wanted to tell you, man, we were bullshitting about that today. I was, you know, like I said, with the 1st Marines, and those guys, there was a bunch of them down there. It was it was so funny. There's a bunch I'd never seen, right? There's a bunch of guys down there I'd never seen before. And I walk in, I said, I introduced myself. Mike comes out, my partner comes out, and he's on my team. He's got a claim of life. He's one of my guys. And there's a couple of them in it, three of them in it. There's about 5 other guys in there, and I'm like, hey, Sergeant Horton, United States Army Special Operations, PSYOP, in case anybody didn't know me. And Mike just goes, dude, fucking everybody knows who the fuck you are, dude. I was like, all right, cool. So, my bad. So anyway, so I told them about the interview. They're all excited to hear the interview. They can't wait for that to come out. And just there was so much more I wanted to tell you. I'm like, good God, the military is a rogue complex. It doesn't have a nation to defend. It has a corporation that they're working through to defend the nation, in an effort to defend the nation. You know?
But it's not legitimately currently under a flag that they're defending. There's nothing that they're defending by right of a flag.
They're defending the base.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they have a base flag. So they're defending the base, the military base, which is the United States government.
Well, if that's the case, would that be a security breach if people actually knew that and other countries could take advantage of that somehow? Is it...
Well, they couldn't, because it would be a declaration of war against us as we try to clean out the infiltration of criminals in our own government system, right? But we don't have a sovereign behind us other than Russell's authorizations with the U.S. Navy to allow commerce to still be conducted under his authority. So the Navy can still move around and defend us in a defensive posture, or offensively should they need to move to an offensive posture. And at that point, if we had to go offensive and anybody started to attack, the other military branches would immediately sign on with the Navy under Commander Gould's authorization, and he would become the commander-in-chief. Would they let him put him at the helm? That's the question. Would they say, hey, Russ, would they say, hey, Trump, we're going to use this guy's authorizations and blah, blah, we have all the authorization in the world. What do you say? Right? So they're not given credit where credit is due. Not letting the individual that should be handling these operations handle these operations, because Russ has secrets. I mean, this guy holds tactical command and control knowledge in his hand that none of these guys are even aware of. He holds tricks. He has so many tricks, so much technology that these guys haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
That he could utilize to end all kinds of shit. He's like, man, they're not even thinking it through. He's like, I've already got this. He's like, I'm 10 steps ahead of these guys all the way. And they're just so dumbed down and just what they know. They don't know what they don't know.
So what do they need? I mean, what does he need to pull all this under control together?
Well, like I said, we know that Trump knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
Trump's aware. We've spoke with Robert David Steele. Robert David Steele went and talked to Trump face to face and told me specifically they know about it, they're aware of it, and they're not ready to move forward with it yet at this point, and they're not going to. And I said, okay. So, but what is the consensus? And he mums the word on that. What's the consensus? So you're behind it or you're not. What's the consensus? And he mums the word. I'm like, you fucker. All right, well, you know what, Robert David Steele, fuck you.
Back in 2020, Sergeant Horton had somehow made his way to Scott McKay, who was then up and coming. And I reached out to Scott at the time and I said to him, if you promote this, you could find yourself in a little bit of trouble, because he was promoting that first drill down he does on a whiteboard on war castles. And he had a warrant for his arrest at that time. Russell was very upset with him. And so I reached out to Scott and Scott didn't respond. Fast forward, after I did the interview with Russell and Sasha, and I'd interviewed Sasha once before, Sasha Stone, I did that interview with them. And then the next thing you know, Robert David Steele, Scott McKay, and Sasha were on a freedom tour or some kind of tour that went across the United States together. And eventually, Russell did meet up with them in Arizona, I think, for one of those. But that's how that came about. And Robert David Steele had come across my radar. I didn't know who he was when Horton spoke to me about him at the time. I did not know. I learned about him when there was a personal conversation that I was a part of between Russell and Sasha Stone. And the conversation had to do with usuries and also the INTJ, I think it was, their international tribunal. And so the tribunal was sort of like the beginning of the truther movement at the time. And the tribunal had Robert David Steele on there. The problem is, and Russell pointed it out during that conversation, is they didn't have the authorizations to do anything about it. They could bring the information forward and call forward the people, but there's no way they could try them without the actual authorizations of Russell. So that sort of led to a dead end. And that's how that came about here. But I wanted to point this out because I think it's interesting information. Fast forward, on that tour, somehow Robert got sick, and there's all kinds of rumors of swirling of what happened there. And I'm not quite sure, but apparently he passed away. So this was, again, what you're seeing here with Horton was filmed in 2018, prior to everything. And that all came about after the fact. But once again, to put an emphasis on the fact that even though they had a tribunal, that they were trying to do something for the world, they had no way to try people because they didn't have the authority of the judge. And the judge would be Russell.
And, you know, David Steele, you know, he's, I'm sure, a good guy, former Marine, gone CIA, and probably a good dude. And, you know, you can tell he's a pompous, arrogant ass, is what he is. He's, and quite frankly, overweight. I want to say he's a big, fat, pompous, arrogant ass. But he told us, you know, they weren't ready to move forward. They're not going to at this point, this juncture. But like I said, you got to clean off. He's got to clean off the table entirely before you can even introduce a new sovereign and say, and by the way, here's what really happened in 1999. This is why I rescinded the laws. This is why this all happened. Why they're not coming forward and doing that now is baffling to all of us. We're like, why not just say it? Mm-hmm. So I sent a DVD to Major General Jerry Boykin, who was my commanding general up at SWIX when I graduated from the Psychological Operations Academy, the Psychological Operations Regiment, at SOCOM, right? So he wasn't my commanding general in relation to, like, he's my commanding general under in control of PSYOP. He was the commanding general in charge of the schoolhouse. So he was in charge of everybody that graduated from the SWIX schoolhouse, right? So he was a schoolhouse commander. When I say he's my commanding general when I graduated, he was the commanding general of the schoolhouse. So he, you know, anybody that was at SWIX at that time graduated under his authority. And I have his signature on my graduation certificate, validating and verifying that. So I sent a DVD to Boykin, telling Boykin, hey, we got it, we understand what's going on, and the sheepdogs are en route. Okay, so he got that. And he knows that we know, and we're broadcasting. And due to the credentialing that I hold as a foreign correspondent and ambassador, as well as a treaty captain and the commander of the Royal Guard for another nation, they're aware of who I am, very much so, and I'm legged in like at all those places I said, and a couple more, the Pentagon and some other places. I've legged at the Pentagon like three different locations at the Pentagon. I'm legged in at. Department of Defense was Secretary of the Navy Sean Stackley, SACNAV. Major General Gallant of NCIS. U.S. Special Forces with Command Sergeant Major Abernathy. U.S. Naval Sea Systems Sea Command. U.S. Naval Special Warfare Command, which is the Navy SEALs. And Secretary of, I believe it was Homeland Security Kelly. And also Rex Tillerson. And I believe he's the acting, I forget what he does, for the Department of Homeland as well, if I'm not mistaken. We tried to leg in with the Secretary of State, like my contracts with the Secretary of State, and that was the big one, Winnie. That was the big one. And Secretary of State at the time, under the Secretary of State, there were 5 vacancies in the direct offices directly under Secretary of State. 5 open offices under the Secretary of State.
Why?
Vacant. That's a national security issue, because one of those offices, I think 2 of those offices, field my type of contract, I am a privateer. I have a privateer contract with another nation's sovereign to be the ambassador for that nation. So I have to leg in with the U.S. State Department to say, hey, I'm the ambassador for this nation, for this sovereign, right? Well, that office was vacant. So I went to U.S. Secret Service headquarters at JBAB in Washington, D.C., and Russell was with me. He was out in the lobby for this. So they bring me in the back and like, Horton, what's going on? It was a couple of Secret Service guys, an MP, and the guys that brought me in. And I'm like, here's what's going on. You know, I've legged in my contract in, blah, 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 and this and that. And we couldn't get it legged in at State Department. There's nobody there. There's 5 fucking vacancies. That's a national security issue. As a psychological warfare specialist, I know that's a fucking national security issue. And those guys, immediately, his partner pulls him up, his younger partner. There's 2 dudes there, right? Jay and Jeremiah or something like that. I forget his name off the top of my head. But Jay and Jeremiah. And so Jeremiah starts scrolling through the phone. He's younger than me. He's like 30. And he scrolls through and goes, holy shit, he's fucking right. There's 5 fucking vacancies underneath Secretary of State. And one of them is the one that fills these type of contracts. And the guy goes, oh my fucking God. And he scrolls through. He goes, not only that, he goes, there's fucking 9. There's not just 5, there's fucking 9 vacancies because there's 4 more further down. He's like, this is fucked up. I said, yeah, this is fucked up. I called the Secret Service field office, told the Secret Service field office what the fuck was going on, who I was as a psychological warfare specialist for the United States Army Special Operations Forces, and how the fuck do I get a privateer contract legged in at the State Department if there's vacancies there? This is a national security issue. And the Secret Service field office in Sacramento told me, well, do you know anybody that qualifies for the position? Tell them to apply for the job.
Really?
I swear to God. And I said, yeah, okay, well, thanks a lot. They said, thank you, bye, click, and they hung up. You're fucking kidding me. You're not going to tell me, yeah, we're working on it or something, or hey, Horton, here's where you can also file those kinds of documents in. Just, hey, if you know anybody that qualifies for the position, fucking have them apply, really?
On Voice America, now in the archives on Making Life Brighter on the Variety Channel, and also here on YouTube, I interviewed Sergeant William Cotel, who was part of CENTCOM at the time of Benghazi, and we did a series on that. It was in 2019, and it began, I believe, in February of 2019. And we did this series on Benghazi because William Cotel was present in the theater overseas at the time that went down. He also had tremendous information he brought forward to me, which was extremely important and very educational for me at the time. And he made clarity for me throughout the entire confusion of what's really gone on in the world. And he had a front row seat to what took place in Benghazi. And he also was able to later on call out some of these characters. And interestingly enough, Russell had court-martialed Flynn back in the day when he did these court-martials, and the tapes that we're seeking were hidden. So fast forward, we're talking about Benghazi, and it turns out that Flynn had actually been someone that tried to silence Sergeant Cotel. But why this is important is because what really went on at that time, in that window, is what's coming around and being spoken of here. And here I am putting the pieces together backwards. I'm putting them together from 2018 to the current day and going backwards in time. I think you'll find those interesting if you check it out. William and I went on to do some very interesting work together, where he also called out what was going on in New York City when all of this came down, when the big C word came down, because those lines outside the hospitals weren't actually there. And so we did a show here, featured here on this channel, called Death for Dollars. And when that show aired, it changed some of the legislation and the maneuvering out of New York and Albany because of it. He was on point, and he's always been on point. He also was the first to file in and call for an investigation or investigation about what was going on. And he called Trump to do that. He asked him to do that. Did they do that? And then on top of that, he also was one that filed in first regarding Afghanistan and the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So he's had some very, very pronounced closure on things, and he's been the first to act on it, the first to stand on it. So the fact that we're coming around to what Horton's saying here about Benghazi is profound. They set us up, as Kotel had told me, in a way that really fundamentally undermined our national security. Take a listen.
That's the kind of shit I got. So I was like,
Why are they all vacant?
because they were getting fired under fucking Clinton's administration for Benghazi bullshit. They fucking bounced. They took their fucking pensions and split before they could get prosecuted, right? And get implicated. So they split.
So then they weren't filled again? No one filled them back?
No, and they were vacant for a long time, right? And so the Secret Service guy goes, fuck Horton. He goes, God, bro. He goes, you guys are. And so I started explaining the flag to Russ, or to them, what Russ did, and that we're trying to make medals to back the nation up and put them on a new banking platform. And he goes, yeah, we're fucking hurting, dude. That'd be fucking great. I said, well, that's our endeavor. And the problem is that we keep having, every time Russ sets up shop somewhere and starts creating medals to back the nation up, he gets raided by some agency claiming to be the FBI or the CIA, and takes all of his goods, takes all of his medals, all the equipment he's got there, the chemicals, everything he's using, and they steal it all.
Well, how can they do that if you guys are protecting him?
Right. Well, this is before we were protecting him.
Okay.
Right. So I said, and then finally he comes to me and he's like, how is this possible? These guys just did this to me. So I make some phone calls. Hey, did you guys just perform a raid? Blah, 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 this and that. And they're like, we don't know of any such raid, and we didn't do it. I'm like, and I would go to my unit and use secured landlines on this. Okay. I would go to my unit to use militarily secured landlines, call these other agencies, because the number comes up and identified on the other end. They know who it's calling.
Yeah.
And I'd identify myself on the landline, tell them who I was, and say, hey, did you guys perform this fucking operation? I'm like, we don't know of any such operation, and we sure the fuck weren't involved. So you got these ghosts. I told Secret Service, you got these ghost groups coming in and fucking snagging this guy's wealth as he's trying to back the nation up. I'm like, that's fucking huge. I said, you're goddamn right, it's fucking huge. I said, why I got to get my contract uploaded. I need my diplomatic plates. I need my diplomatic paper because the State Department authorizes my diplomatic standing, right?
Right.
With the rest of the world to say, Horton is the ambassador for these guys.
Well, can't Russ do that for you and see to it that that gets done?
We sent it out anyway. So everybody got it. But the U.S.
They know. Everyone knows.
Right. But the U.S. State Department issues the credentialing to say, here's your diplomatic passport. Here's your diplomatic ID issued by the State Department stating you're this person. But because there was no one there, I couldn't get the stuff created. Right? So I told U.S. Secret Service the problem, and they go, fuck, this is fucking huge. I said, you're goddamn right. I said, I'm coming to you guys for guidance and counsel because I don't know who else to go to. You guys are the shit. This has to do with gold and money and backing the nation up. And he goes, God, Horton, you're a psychological warfare specialist. He goes, you're a special operations guy. He goes, you guys are so fucking far ahead of the curve in relation to where we're at. He goes, I'm just a regular little GS9 worker. My buddy's a GS7 worker. They're like, yeah, we're just little GS workers. I'm like, yeah, but you guys are former fucking special operations guys, right? Like, yeah, we're military, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. Well, I need you guys then to take the position of State Department and leg me in and give me my fucking credentials. And they're like, fuck, we can't do that. We don't have the power to do that. And I was like, you're kidding me. I'm like, you're the fucking Secret Service. They go, yeah, we are, but we just monitor money and the counterfeiting of money. And of course, the robberies. Anybody who robs a bank's fucking hammered, right? It's like, that's basically, and we protect the president. That's all we do. He goes, you guys are so fucking far ahead of the curve in the field of what's going on, Horton. He goes, it's not even funny. He goes, you guys are fucking the shit. And he's like, we are so far behind the curve, it's not funny. So I said, well, he starts scrolling through his phone. Jace, the older guy, who's about my age, he was about 40. He starts scrolling through his phone. He's like, I got no guidance for you, bro. I got no guidance and no counseling. I don't even have a contact at the State Department to send you to specifically who can hook you up, who's one of our guys, a military guy that understands what the fuck you're telling us. He's like, I don't have a single fucking phone number in my phone. And he looks at his buddy and he goes, you got a number? And he goes, well, I ain't got no numbers. If I got numbers, I got them from you. You're my fucking, you're my lead. So they were laughing about it. And I said, okay, well, look, man, we're going to be doing this and that. We're going to be making gold in certain territories. They said, okay. I said, well, we need to make sure we're not raided. So how the fuck can we make sure we're not raided? And I need a QRF to come to our rescue if we are. And he's like, okay, here's what you do. You go to the National Guard headquarters closest to wherever the fuck you're at. You tell them what you're up to, and you have them call us. Tell them, call Secret Service, and we'll validate and verify everything you're doing and who you guys are, and tell them they are the QRF should you need fucking assistance in any manner to defend yourselves against anybody coming into your area of operations to try to raid you. And I said, out fucking standing. So I bounced, right? So anyway, all right, hold on. Let me use the restroom.
I'll pause this.
Yeah, pause it.
There we have it, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this very special 4-part series and even the outtakes. Your questions are important. Your closure is important. And the fact that you can comprehend this information that I tried to synthesize back in 2018 is part and parcel of how this story can come forward to the world. It's necessary that this story come forward to the world because without it, people are playing in a dance that's a dangerous game and they're ripe for harvesting. So you've been given quite a bit of information here, both from Commander-in-Chief J. Gould, as well as Sergeant Robert Horton's closure, which is necessary from a firsthand witness perspective and someone that was his treaty captain to actually put those pieces together so that you could comprehend the scope and the breadth of what this really is. More importantly, how much you're being lied to. And that's the real kicker, that people that you are vesting in are not actually giving you, the people, we the people, the information that you need. And so this information has been set forth for you, and the venue has been created since this interview. So you can take that information, you can get your live life claims at fortheclaimofthelife.com, and you can take this forward and move those usuries into your life so that you can capture the usuries and you're not harvested by this system. So some of this may seem foreign, and I know that several people have written in saying, you know, it's over my head, I can't get it, you're talking down to us. No, no one's talking down to you. In fact, I don't know a better way to dumb it down at this point. So the only thing I can suggest is that you completely immerse yourself into it. You step into it and you begin to do the performances that you need to do. And when you do that, you will see the reward. You will understand the scope of what we're talking about, because it's fairly shocking when you realize that just about everybody in local government actually understands this, but they're keeping it from you. That's a frightening thought, but it's true. And certainly those at the top that are playing a very, very calculated game, they know it too. So we the people need to bring J. Gould forward. And one way to do that is to just take on your own life and change your life and do your usuries, and you'll see what happens. You know, Sergeant Horton had since had a warrant for his arrest, and I spoke about that briefly several times. That's not my business. That's the business of J. Gould and Sergeant Horton. But the point is, the closure that he gave here is true, and that closure is helpful to you. So that's why I present it to you right now. He had subsequently tried to give me documents that might be considered classified that I didn't need. I did not accept them. I did not go get them. And I found that offensive. I found it frightening as well. So I reported that to the Commander-in-Chief, and he promptly sent me to the Los Angeles Air Force Base, where they scanned in my eyeballs with those crazy Star Trek glasses and goggles they have, and my biofield and everything else. And that was an experience and a half. But these kinds of things, these are real. This isn't a make-believe game. This is for real. And there is tactical control and command of certain things. And there are we'll say classified things that Russell only knows. So one man, which is why he calls his website Last Flag Standing, one man is holding all that. That's a lot. And he is definitely someone that has had great strength and courage throughout all of this time frame. And in that strength and courage, he's given the closure that he can for you to be able to take that and use it, should you choose to use it. How does the world change? That's been the never-ending question that I've asked over and over again since we began the interviews on radio. And what would we do to make those changes? I think the first step is that you get your own usuries in place. Then from there, postmaster to postmaster, people can create the communities, and perhaps even there'll be a window for the government shift over. Because remember, what they're saying here is that there are no states. The states were not reconstituted. They were not, again, brought back into the system when the system ended. So all state nationals really are null and void. And you can go back to the closure on Piercing Dynasty to see that. So I hope this was helpful to you. I hope that you are being given closure that you can ruminate on. And for all the interviews I've done, you can find them on Voice America and any of the other extra interviews like the ones on Benghazi or any of the Death for Dollars I did that changed some of the things that happened in New York State during the COVID. You can see that also here on this channel. So I'd like to just point out to you that this is not a game, and I don't know what else that can be told to you that's not been done or given. So maybe you'll take this information and let it settle within you and take that to heart, because people are using it and it's helping them. And this is especially important for people that want to safeguard their children. So just imagine, had this, I did this in 2018. Just imagine if the people had taken it seriously, if the world had listened, if the leaders that we're talking about had come forward and given the proper closure, none of this would have happened. None of the big C word would have taken place, and how many lives would have been actually saved? That part really gets me. How many lives would have been saved in that effort? How many children would not now be subjected to having poison in their system that may alter them forever? I take that seriously, and I find it sad, troubling. The information was out there, and they didn't stop and correct, and they didn't tell you, the people. So take that to heart, please. We have our own eyes on our own plate to correct first, and you've been given the tools, and you can go to lastflagstanding.com for your information that you need. And I hope that all of these interviews and the movies and everything help you to sort through what it is that you need to make your world brighter and safeguard your world as necessary. Go jolly, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And as always, we will be bringing you more and more information, which is more in my field of expertise, healing. Thank you for listening.
One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to feed his soul.